Hi, I'm Tyler, and welcome to another episode of my Christian Music Week reviews. Each week I take 5 releases, be it LCPs or singles, and after I listen to them all week, I come back here and I review them. I share what I think about them. So without further ado, let's get to this week's first release. Elevation Worship's new album, Can You Imagine? Elevation Worship's new album, Can You Imagine? Let's dive into it. So, about Elevation Worship, they can be kind of a hit or miss band with me. Sometimes I like their albums, sometimes I don't like their albums, sometimes I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. But this album, I definitely liked. Pretty good album here. Stylistically, definitely a contemporary worship sound. Mostly ballads, but a few upbeat moments as well. We also hear elements of gospel, pop rock, folk, and alternative. And as for the lyrics here, love the lyrics here, love the bold faith expressed here on this album. Such an encouragement. As for the lyrics here, Elevation Worship praises God for how we can peacefully put our trust in Him to win His incomparable love through Jesus' pursuing us, through shedding His blood on the cross to save us from our sin, to faithfully keep His promises to be with us, to be sovereign over our futures, provide for our needs, and fight for us, to miraculously make a way for us to go further, even when it seems like there's no way for us to do so. I particularly like that theme, even when it doesn't seem like there's a way. God miraculously makes a way anyhow. That is a very encouraging theme there. Up next, Northwest Stories' debut album, Harvest. Northwest Stories' debut album, Harvest. Let's dive into it. So pretty good album here, stylistically, definitely a folk release that is strongly alternative influenced, and a little bit of a pop influence as well, might I add, on a couple songs. And as for the lyrics here, pretty good lyrics here as well. Northwest Stories talks about how in the hopelessly hard waiting season, they follow God in faith, that He is leading them out of their comfort zones to grow their faith and miraculously guide them to their dreams in His timing. Up next, Young Pop Renegades Volume 2. Young Pop Renegades Volume 2. Before I dive into my thoughts on it, let me just say a couple things. Number one, thanks Christian Music Girl for requesting it. And number two, if you want to check out my thoughts on Volume 1, I reviewed that on, if you want to hear my thoughts on Volume 1, I reviewed that on this channel as well, and you can go back and check that out after we're done. And Young Pop Renegades is a group of pop artists helmed by Matthew Parker, but also including some other Christian pop artists, including Xander Sallows, Sam Bauman, Jacob Stanifer, just to name a few. Now let's dive into my thoughts on the album itself here. So pretty good album here. Stylistically, definitely a pretty upbeat synth pop release that has some EDM, definite EDM influence here. We also hear some alternative elements at a couple of points as well here, at a few points as well here. And as for the lyrics here, pretty good lyrics here. Pretty honest about dealing with stress issues. Pretty honest lyrics here, talking about that. And as for the lyrics here, Young Pop Renegades talks about how stress from people's opinions has tried to destroy them into apathy, and they need to surrender to God to revive them from that and focus on the people who make them feel better, to rise above the stress that ultimately only strengthens them to pursue their dreams of living God's purpose for them. Up next, Jason Crabb's new EP, Good Morning Mercy. So before I dive into my thoughts on Jason Crabb's EP, Good Morning Mercy, I have to kind of thank Christian Music Girl for giving me the idea to review this EP, because when I did the Q&A session, when I hit 100 subscribers, She asked if I heard Jason Crabb's song Good Morning Mercy, which caused me to review the reimagined version featuring Dylan Scott. So when I saw the CP come out, I thought, it might be nice to review this CP. So thanks, Christian Music Girl, for giving me the idea to review this EP. Let's dive into it here. So, pretty good EP here, stylistically, definitely a contemporary country worship type of sound that can veer into southern rock a little bit at times. Pretty good EP here, and as for the lyrics here, love the lyrics here, like how testimony-oriented they are, as to how Jesus can change us, and specifically the change that Jesus did in Jason Crabb's life. And as for the lyrics here, Jason Crabb talks about praising Jesus for how when Jason was painfully lost in sin and shame from wrong pursuits, Jesus, in his mercy through his blood, miraculously set Jason free from that to transform Jason through the resurrection to live a new life where Jason follows Jesus in sharing his testimony of how Jesus changed him to others as Jason trusts in God's sovereignty. Up next, our last release for today, Kyle Church's new album, Plant a Garden. So before I dive into my thoughts on Kyle Church's new album, Plant a Garden, I have to thank my mom for requesting me a couple of the singles that came out before the album, which kind of made me make sure I reviewed this album. So, thanks, Mom, for giving me the idea to review Kyle Church's new album, Plant a Garden. Let's dive into it. So, pretty good album here. Stylistically, definitely a folk release that is strongly alternative influence as well. And as for the lyrics here, pretty good lyrics here. Pretty honest lyrics, might I add. Kyle Church talks about how in the anxious uncertainty from his hopes being deferred that has left him hopelessly weak, Kyle trusts is that God is sovereign over the hope deferred to grow something beautiful out of it, and to help Kyle to see that life is temporary and needs to be spent reflecting this hope to others. Well, that's it for this week. Come back next week for 5 more releases. If you like what you saw in this video, please subscribe. I put out videos every Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Also, if you have any thoughts on today's releases or what I may have said about them, let me know down in the comments below. Also in the comments, you can let me know if there's any awesome releases today that came out today that you want to see in next week's video. Also, check out the playlist section for my Music Month Dreams playlist available here on YouTube and also on Spotify. And this month's edition of the playlist, which is up until Thursday, features songs from artists like Switchfoot, Judah, Apollo Ltd, and others. So go and check that out if you're interested. And know that a new edition of the playlist will be coming out on Thursday, so be on the lookout for that. I also want to wish y'all a happy Memorial Day. So grateful for our military who laid their lives down to make sure that we have the freedoms that we enjoy, including freedom to listen to great music that talks about Jesus, like the music we talked about today. Also, too, Memorial Day is the unofficial start of summer. So while, yes, it's been a great winter and spring of album reviews, I am looking forward to a great summer of reviews. So be on the lookout for some great music this summer, starting with the music I'm going to talk about in next week's video. Well, I'll go now. Happy Memorial Day, y'all. Bye!